passion and disinterest, or more so, compassion and anger. And when we choose the right path, we are reflecting back to Hashem his mercy, and he bestows mercy on us. And Rebbe Knussen says in Likutei Halachos that tzedakah, giving to people who are suffering, and that giving can take many forms, but specifically he's talking about charity, but we could also talk about giving compassionately. It sweetens harsh decrees. So anytime we're going through a suffering, we should give charity. Okay, and this alleviates, we call it Hashem's anger, but it really isn't anger in the way that we understand it. Now, one of the interesting things that Rebbe Nachman tells us, and I'm bringing up money because money and anger have a lot to do with each other, and we're going to get into it a little bit later in the semester. But one of the interesting things that Rebbe Nachman tells us is that when you have nothing, if you have only a few cents, give it all away, because that incurs Hashem's mercy. So if you make over what you have to charity, to tzedakah, you are assured of Hashem's mercy. And charity, tzedakah, is one of the few things you're allowed to test Hashem on. We're not allowed to test, but we are with this. So for example, if you think you might be getting a check, somebody owes you money, or you have a paycheck coming, or you just did a business deal and you don't know what's coming, if you give Meiser 10% in anticipation of what's coming, you are assured that what's coming is going to come to you. Of course, this takes a nice, strong level of emunah to do this, but I've done it many, many times, and I can assure you that as a test, Hashem always gets an A+. Okay, so we're going to continue tonight with the Aleph Bet book and anger, and then we're going to finish this up tonight so that we can move on to other texts next week. So just give me a minute to find the page because I marked the wrong page. This whole new system has me so thrown because I don't know how to set it up, but hopefully I'll get the hang of it eventually. Okay. So let's see. Nope, that's not correct. Here it is. Okay. So we're going to skip a few. We were going down the list. We're on number 22, Chaf Base, and that one is Kina, jealousy, okay, leads to anger. This is an insight from Rebbe Nachman, and it's actually a deep one, because jealousy, kina, is something just like anger. We discussed last week, one of those things that doesn't always come out so directly. We have to really pay attention to ourselves, examine ourselves carefully, see where we're flawed in this area, and work through it. That's all. Okay? It's not a crisis situation, but it's something we must be aware of. So how does jealousy lead to anger? There's a few ways. First of all, jealousy implies frustration with you don't have what somebody else has. Or worse, you don't want someone else to have something, even if you don't want it. That's a kind of kina, it's a kind of jealousy. Okay? Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Any yeses here? Yes. Okay. Marianne says yes. Kyle says yes. Okay. All right. And another yes. Okay. So what occurs is that when we see something in this world that we don't have, or that we wish we had, or that we just don't want someone else to have, this is an expression of anger, and it's an expression of a lack of emunah. And we've all done this, okay? The things that Rebbe Nachman lists here are all very common and occur with all of us. We see somebody has something, somebody's doing something, and we say to ourselves, who do they think they are? Why do they have it? That's a form of anger. Jealousy can also lead to anger on a very obvious level. Okay, if you're jealous of someone, okay, it can cause a breakdown in the relationship. And jealousy often is hidden and comes out as anger. When we are happy with what we have and who we are, jealousy and anger are both eliminated. We are truly, genuinely pleased that we were born in the way we were born, in the life situation we have, with all its tests, with all its challenges, with all its problems. And we believe that Hashem designed this specifically for our own personal spiritual growth, the growth of our soul. And these tests that come along do become, in some areas, easier once we open our eyes to them. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that denial, okay, is not the opposite of seeing the good in yourself. Because we have to remember that even as we're examining ourselves, we should strengthen ourselves and remember our good points. We have to do that. But denial, what that does is it's demanding perfection of us, and it means that we can't even truly appreciate our good points. So we want to open our eyes to this, okay? I won't belabor it. You get the idea. Okay, number 23. So we were speaking about this earlier when I mentioned Parshas Mishpatim, the Parsha of the week. When a person gets angry, he incites harsh judgments against himself. So this is something that we know across the board from all the tzaddikim and all the chachamim, that anger, when we feel anger, and especially when we show a temper, but even when we feel angry or burning anger, we incite judgment. Okay. I spoke last week about the outrage movements where people collectively just experience outrage over this and that and this thing and this injustice and that. And by the way, it doesn't mean we shouldn't address injustices, but anger, especially that personalized anger and that vitriol that comes with it, is sending out that kind of energy where what we're going to get back is more anger, judgment. So how to work through it. So I had and I don't know that she's here. I'm going to click up. No. I had a very interesting call a couple of hours ago from somebody I've known a very long time, very, very close to her. And she participated in the creation of an event for a shul. And the shul was a little bit actually, more traditional than her normal shul. And it kept to some chumras that a lot of people are against presently. The chumras for women. And she called me up. She told me about it. She got a lot of really negative calls, and apparently there was something going on social media because she participated in helping an organization. It's a very good organization, a very good shul, but she participated in helping them, and she didn't get involved in the chumras that they have. And when we had this conversation, the conversation was about, wow, all that anger that was directed at her and directed at these people really could have been handled quite differently. People could speak to each other. People can say, this is pushing my buttons, but I'm working on it. But is there a way that you and I can talk and reach a compromise about this issue? Because when we don't do that, we're going to get back, as the expression is, in spades. We're going to get it back in another way, and it's going to be difficult for us. Okay, because just as all our thoughts create reality, we have to remember that our feelings are a type of thought. Our emotions are a type of thought. Okay, it's very connected. So our emotions are creating reality too, which is why someone who's sad is going to not necessarily encounter things to cheer themselves up. Even if they're there, they're not even going to experience them, which is why someone who's angry and who's hanging on to that anger, nothing can appease them. They're just going to get back more and more and more of that anger. And this is something that we all have to work on because we all express this in different ways. Now, last week we mentioned that women express anger very often differently than men. So what was so interesting to me about this phone call that I had, and it really wasn't about anger, it was about a specific situation, but this was a part of the story, was that the women ganged up on her. It was really hurtful. They all ganged up. And I couldn't imagine men doing that. It was as if the unity justified the anger. And I could be wrong here, okay? So that's something to watch out for. If we're fighting for a cause, are we fighting with anger? Are we ganging up? Or are we proactively finding ways to move forward, to address issues without attacking? Okay. This isn't popular, by the way, what I'm saying right now. I know it's not popular. But this is how a Jew behaves. We're supposed to behave in a certain manner, not for the sake of decorum or manners, but for the sake of what's going on at the soul level. Okay. All right. So we are going to continue. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay. If anybody on social media has questions, I can't see you or see your questions or answer them. I'm sorry. I can only do it through Breslov Campus. So if you do want to ask questions, you have to log on. Okay. The next one I want to do is 25. Anger shortens one's life. Okay. For obvious reasons. Okay. It shortens your life. Just the stress of it alone is not healthy. Okay, everybody knows that. That doesn't have to be explained in great detail. Okay, all right, we're just a few more to go, and we'll have finished the Aleph Bet book. Okay, this is a very interesting one, and I think that if we think about it and work through it, we're going to be very surprised. An angry person clearly covets honor, and all his good deeds are only for self-glorification. Why is that? Why is it so obvious? The Rebbe is saying that it's actually obvious that someone who's angry, okay, loves kavod. He loves honor. She loves honor. What's that about? Because again, anger is an affront. I mean, the anger is the response to an affront against our desires. So someone who is angry isn't getting their desires met. And one of the most basic desires everyone craves is honor. We want to be treated with respect. We want basic human respect. Sometimes we want more than that. Okay? Sometimes we want more than that. Okay, questions about that? There's got to be a question about this one. It's not so obvious. You have to think about it. Okay, no questions. Can everybody hear me tonight? I hope so. I'm not getting any feedback. It's unusual. Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, good. Hi, everybody. All right. So this moralizing, once we get deeper into the lessons, all of this, it sounds like moralizing, all of this is going to come into play. And we're going to get into the some of the reasons behind this and the apparatus behind this. But even on the simple level, even on the simple moral level, it's obvious. Okay. A person, this is number 32, a person who breaks his angry nature earns himself a good name. This is a gift. Everybody wants a good reputation. Nobody wants to be disliked. Everybody wants to be trusted. Nobody wants to be mistrusted. Nobody wants to have people dislike them. It's so fascinating that when we manage, and the Rebbe does use the word shemishaber, to break, right? When we break our anger, when we dissolve it, when we lose that part of ourselves as much as possible, we are given the gift of a good name. Our reputation improves on the simple level because people like you more when you're not yelling at them. Yeah, basically. But there's a deeper, there's a spiritual response. An angry person can't ever have a genuinely respectful response from people, because that response will often be mired in fear, okay? Certainly, even, unfortunately, hatred. If people are afraid of someone, they don't have a good name. What is a good name? It's someone who's respected, not just for their accomplishments and the good deeds they do and the mitzvahs they do, more than that. They're respected for the ingrained quality of their character, their midos, because there are people who do a lot, who give a lot, who are constantly giving tzedakah, a lot of tzedakah, okay, and who constantly doing this and doing that, achieving, winning, but their character, they have to work on some issues. So what's happening is that they're being admired for their good deeds and respected for them. But the genuine love for someone, a true liking for someone, comes when that person exhibits their own loving qualities back. With anger, loving there. It's just not. People operate out of fear with that. Okay? All right. We're going to skip. And I think we're going to definitely be able to get through this tonight, I hope. Anger, this number 34, if you have, by the way, BRI put out a new edition of the Aleph Bet book, and it's really beautiful. So I highly recommend that if you don't have it, go get it. It's fantastic. Anger leads to atzvus, okay? Depression. Anger. Oh, okay, there it is. So even though this can be cyclical, and it's sometimes hard to tell the chicken from the egg with anger and depression, we have to believe that the Rebbe knows what he's talking about here. And the truth is, again, that, oh, can I show the cover of the book? Sure, Elon asked. Sure. Okay. And the Hebrew is on one side, and then on the other side is the English. Okay. So anger leads to depression because anger depletes you. We learned before that it's very harmful for your health. Okay. It's much easier to be happy when you're feeling healthy, when your heart's not pounding out of your chest. What happens when we get angry? Okay, Simply Yael still here. She's an expert in psychology, and maybe she's here. I don't know. I can't see. Okay, so what happens with anger is that you have a oh, I see she's typing now. Simply Yael, tell us the physiological response to anger. Let's hear what she has to say. she's typing. I know that it does things to your body that aren't good. Okay. Okay. So while she's typing, I can tell you from experience that if I get angry, my heart hurts. I literally, my heart hurts. I can feel, and that's my warning signal to take a deep breath and to remember Hashem, that whatever event is going on, whether it's something I've been dealing with a long time or just a provocative new event, anger isn't the way to go, okay, because it hurts. Simply, you're still typing. Let's see. I'm trying to see what she's saying. Okay. I'm here. Classically, anger is depression turned in and against oneself. Anger causes all sorts of imbalances in the body physiologically and negatively affects us physically and spiritually. Thank you. Yes, it's true. Okay. It's interesting because I've heard the opposite, that depression is anger turned against oneself. Is that possible? I don't know. Maybe it's just a reversal of a similar idea. But a lot happens to the body, 100%. A lot of things happen to the body when we get angry. Our blood pressure goes up. You get red in the face, okay? You have problems. You're barely breathing. You know, when you get angry, what do people say? Take a deep breath. Why? Because you don't breathe when you're angry. You speak really fast. You can scream, strain your vocal cords, and so on and so forth. So definitely affects our physical health, and it affects our mental health. And in terms of leading to depression, it's so debilitating. Anger's so debilitating. It's such a tremendous weight on the soul that the soul can't bear it. Why can't the soul bear it? This is what we all really need to pay attention to. A neshama, a soul, is pure and holy. And anything that we do in this world that goes against our true, deepest godly nature, okay? The true you that's in there, okay? That what goes against that godly nature is something that's going to cause you to feel cut off from yourself, cut off from your roots, distressed, confused, sad, depressed. Okay? Something we have to work on. All right. Somebody else says there's always something under the anger, typically sadness and hurt. Okay. All right. It's definitely, there's definitely a very, very strong relationship. Rebbe Nachman says that the anger leads to the depression. Yeah. Anger and the depression above, right? The depression is anger turned inside out. Yeah. Okay. Now, we have a little bit more. Number 36. Where there is strictness, there is no peace. It's really good to have our resident social worker here. Thank you, Cynthia. Where there is strictness, there is no peace. So who was raised by a strict parent? Okay. Who has been in a situation where they've lived in a home where somebody had to control and micromanage everything? Okay. I'm a little bit that way myself. I'm working on it. Okay. When things have to be in an order that's rigid, okay, I'm not talking about halacha, and I'm not talking about the difference between humras and halacha and following halacha in essence, but in general, when things have to be in exactly perfect way, and everybody has to conform exactly perfectly, people are walking around in a state where they can't relax. And that strictness, overly strict, whether it's a parent, a teacher, some figure of authority, whether you're overly strict with yourself, this is related to anger. It's actually also related to fear. And I'm sure simply Yael would agree with me that anger and fear are often very closely related. Because what happens is when we are afraid that something's out of our control, it can often come out as anger, because sometimes the fear itself is so scary that we just explode instead. Okay. So if you are around a strict person, or if you're strict yourself, if you're overly strict with chumras, okay, now we can talk about halacha, with religious stringencies that are making you and everyone else around you tense. Chill, take a deep breath, okay? As long as the halacha is being basically adhered to, you're doing fine. And not everybody's always on the same page. You have to allow room for people to make errors, just like you would like room when you make errors. And if you're strict with yourself, which many people are, unfortunately, they're overly strict with themselves. Remember that you're not perfect. You can't be perfect. And Hashem, more than anything, He loves you the way you are. He doesn't expect you to be perfect. He really just wants you to try your best with a capital B. But that doesn't mean locking yourself into a corner where your service of Hashem and your connection with Hashem isn't pleasant and joyous for you. Okay. All right. And this is, we're coming up to Pesach. We haven't even hit Purim yet, and I'm thinking about Pesach for sure. That's the time of year where a lot of people go bananas on strictness, and we'll have our yearly talk about that. We always have it's the same theme, but new things come up every year. Okay. Here's one that I love. You're going to like this one too, everybody. Eating helps a person dismiss his anger. Okay. We know the expression hangry, right? Sometimes you're walking around, you forget to eat, and it's making you irritable. What is the Rebbe saying? He's saying eat. Okay, eat properly. Eat something kosher. Make the proper bracha on it. Make a blessing on it if you're able to. Make a blessing on it. Okay. Think about the food as it's going inside you. Okay. Hashem made this wonderful food, whether it grew on a tree or was farmed on a farm or whatever, and it's nourishing you. And it's evening out your blood sugar so that you're no longer irritable and you won't erupt in anger. How many times do you forget to eat and realize that's why you're so cranky? Okay. All right. Okay. Here is something that's I like the way that the Rebbe puts this, because it gives us an insight into how we should be dealing with anger. He says, Tishmor. Okay. So he says, Tishmor es atzmecha mekas. Guard yourself. Okay. Guard yourself against your anger. Okay. We have to be on guard, because it's easy to slide into, especially if we haven't worked on this issue in our lives. Even people who don't have a bad temper have to work on their anger, because everybody gets angry occasionally. We have to work on it. So guard yourself against your anger. Take that proactive, positive step. This is something I'm going to guard myself against. Okay? And he says, particularly on a day you've been saved, okay? You've had a Yeshua from some kind of danger or misfortune. Particularly, show your gratitude to Hashem. He's just saved you. How can you forget everything and get angry about something inconsequential? Okay. All right. I think we're going to do, there are a lot more, and again, you should get the book and read it, but we're going to do one more, and then we will have gone through all the aphorisms, most of the aphorisms in the Aleph Bet book on anger, and we can move on to meatier, meaning more developed material. Okay. 41. Anger causes a person to become frightened. When Simcha and Yael and I were having that dialogue, her in text and me verbally, we spoke about fear and anger and depression. Okay. very often there's a relationship between all three of these, but certainly fear is related to anger. Now, it's interesting because I know that people get angry when they're fearful, but the Rebbe's saying the opposite here. He's saying anger causes a person to become frightened. So I think especially that if an anger or a rage, God forbid, out of control, that in and of itself can be scary. It could also scare other people, especially little people. Kids get very afraid when an adult is angry. Okay, so frankly, so does everybody. Nobody likes the feeling. All right, so we have finished the first part of this course, which is divided into two, which is to work on the Aleph Beit book. And I would like to, remember we're only doing half an hour to 45 minutes. So I'm thinking that what we'll do is, instead of going to next week's lesson and beginning the whole lesson, what I'm going to do is give you something really wonderful to read over the course of the week. And what I'm going to do is, if you have this book, great. If not, I'll scan it in and you'll email me, and I'll email you this part of the prayer. So everybody knows the 50th gate, right? This is Likutei Tefillos, Rebbe Knusen's prayers that he wrote at the behest of Rebbe Nachman, who said, "Turn my lessons into prayers." And he said it because really he wants all of us to pray about what we're learning, to make this part of ourselves. I know I say this again and again, but I'm saying it to myself too, reminding myself that when I go to make Hisbodedus every day, at least part of what I'm talking to Hashem about should be not just the Torah that I'm giving over, but what I myself have heard. I'm learning this. I'm reading something. How can I make it part of myself? How can I apply it? Okay. And part of my Hisbodedus is asking Hashem, I want to make this real for me. Can I have some insights into how I can apply this in my life? And almost always something comes up that shows me how to do that. I wouldn't say always. That's why I said almost, but very, very frequently. So this volume is, again, it's really wonderful. It's in Hebrew on one side, okay? And then an English translation that's not so literal. It's a little bit of poetic license in order to help it make sense on the other. And the prayer that I'm going to recommend to you is one of the things we discussed about getting a good name. Does everybody remember that aphorism in the Aleph Beit book we discussed before? I think it might be 32. I don't remember which one. So this prayer is a prayer on overcoming anger, and it's embedded and as part of prayer number 59. Okay. And prayer number 59 corresponds to lesson 49 in Likutei Moharan. The lessons and prayers don't always correspond. This one happens to. That makes it easy for us. And it begins with asking Hashem to grant me a good name. To grant me a good name. And the whole gist of this section of the prayer is how to overcome anger. Now, we're going to touch on part of this lesson next time. But in the meantime, if you want to say the prayer, you can certainly begin on this, and then you'll be able to offer insights in class in your own experience. So it speaks about the relationship between a good name, okay, and avoiding anger, and it speaks about the relationship between idolatry and anger, and it explains, when we discussed this in the first class, not tonight but previously, how being angry is a form of idol worship. And this prayer asks Hashem to give us good midos. It says, help us. I can't do this by myself, Hashem. I can't do this by myself, Hashem. I can't. I need your help. Okay? Help me emulate you and be merciful, patient, and doing good to all, and let me be guarded against falling into anger. This prayer is very beautiful, whether you read it in English or Hebrew, and it's a very short little section. If you have the book, it's volume 3, prayers 41 to 66. This is 59, and it's a short section from page 366. The Hebrew ends on 368, and the English is on 367, and it ends on 369, and it's really just a few paragraphs, okay? So let me type my email, and I can send it to you if you don't have the book. Okay, this is, I'm going to give you my Gmail, because that makes it easier for me. Okay, so before we leave, does anyone have any questions or comments about what we've talked about tonight? Okay. I see Teresa. I didn't know you were here, Teresa. Welcome. It's nice to see you. Okay, she's typing. I'm assuming there's a question. And if anybody else has any questions or comments, feel free. Okay. Okay, how do we not get upset daily when we hear our Roche saying awful things to the people? I just can't take it anymore. Okay, so Teresa is hearing a leader. Teresa's living in a situation where she hears, she's in a very stressful situation in a nation where she's hearing a lot of negativity about the Jewish people. So my best advice to you is to only listen to the news and read the news when it applies to you directly and you need to know. The news can be on a need to know basis, okay? And since you are so sensitive and you are so caring and you are so aligned with the Jewish nation, protect yourself against it from a little bit. Why why hurt your heart? We know what goes on in this world. Let's concentrate on the good. Think of all the good things that people are doing, and take your news in small doses. Really, you don't need to know it all. Maybe you do, but I don't think so. Protect yourself, protect your mood. We can't serve Hashem if we're miserable, worried, unhappy, and afraid. Of course, we all need to know what's going on in the news. We need to be aware, but we probably need to know a lot less than we think we do. I limit my news greatly. I really do. I used to be such a news bug. I was addicted when I was younger to politics. I was activist. I was so involved in all kinds of things. And I've learned that if something's going on that I really need to know, somebody's going to tell me. I don't have to go looking for it. I hope that answers your question, dear Teresa. Okay. All right, everybody. If there are no more questions, I'm going to say goodnight to you, and I hope you have a very good week. And please feel free to email me if you would like me to scan that in and send you a copy. I'm happy to do so. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Simpliel, for all your participation. Good night, everybody. Let's see if I can figure out how to sign out of here. I'm not even sure if I know how to sign out. No, I don't even know how to sign out. Oh, boy. Okay. Let me see. Surveys. No. Presentation. No. Let me try the other one. Okay. Okay. Oh, this new format is driving me bananas. I can't figure